Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Business Incorporated. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. G7 finance meeting kicks off with global economy and tax evasion in focus. Oil prices rise as turmoil in Nigeria, others contribute to tightening supplies. Plus, Tanzania plans a $3 billion fertilizer factory in partnership with a consortium of investors from Germany, Denmark, and Pakistan this year. I will take up from the G7 meeting, where a group of 7 finance ministers, central bankers, and participating professors gathered early in the morning on Friday to discuss the future of global economy in Sendai, Japan. The 3-day summit kicked off on Thursday with a welcoming reception hosted by Japanese finance minister and Bank of Japan president. The health of the world economy is expected to be a major focus during the summit, and the topic of tax evasion and avoidance will likely be discussed also in the wake of the Panama Papers issue.
Great pleasure to have you here under the Japanese presidency in this special year, which makes the 30th anniversary of G7 finance meeting.
It is tremendously significant to Japan that so many honorable global leaders warmly gather in Sendai, a part of the area that was hit by the Great East Japan earthquake 5 years ago.
In Japan, Germany automaker Volkswagen has reached a wage agreement with the labor union representing around 120,000 workers in Germany, which is in line with union agreements in the region. The company will pay a total of 4.8% wage increase staggered in 2 phases, coming close to the union's demand for a pay rise of around 5%. The wage pact is valid for 20 months. Last week, tens of thousands of Volkswagen workers in Germany worked off the job at some of its plants after the car maker failed to make a wage offer. Volkswagen has been embroiled in scandal since last September after admitting it installed software that enabled its vehicles to cheat emission tests. At the Asian market, Japanese stocks traded higher on Friday, shrugging off weak trading on Wall Street. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index closed up 0.5%. In China, Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 1%, while the mainland's benchmark Shanghai Composite was 0.3% higher. In South Korea, the benchmark Kospi index closed flat at 1,947.67. Australia's ASX 200 index climbed 0.6%. Now let's cross over to Frankfurt Stock Exchange for news coming out from Europe. DWTV Channels TV financial correspondent Javier Arguedas joins me now. Good afternoon, Javier. Good to have you on the program today. Well, Javier, good news from Volkswagen on new workers' wages, but not so good news from Fiat Chrysler refusing to meet German Transport Authority. Talk us through this development.
Yes, well, those are 2 important pieces of news. The first one you already explained, VW essentially reaching an agreement for their wages for the workers. At least something positive coming from VW, considering all the bad news that we've heard in the past few months, and it's soon going to be over a year. So at least that is something that gives a little bit of relief to investors who have been seeing the stocks plunge in the past months. As for the Fiat Chrysler confrontation with the German government, well, that is a very interesting development. Fiat Chrysler refused to meet with the German transportation authorities that wanted to discuss allegations of possible cheating in emissions, the same that we've seen with many other car brands. But Fiat Chrysler says that the German authorities are not the persons or not the entities to speak with about this topic, as of course the regulations come rather from the the European Union. So that is something that is very interesting. Of course, the ministry has not been pleased by this piece of news, by this development. We will see how that ends. Of course, that somehow does at least create the suspicion that there might be something wrong with Fiat Chrysler vehicles, especially after a release of a report that has just been released where German transportation authorities tested and saw that more than 30 different car brands and models, we don't know which, definitely have more or higher emissions than stated.
Now, Javier, still talking automobile, this time Tesla. Tesla just raised $1.4 billion in new capital from stock sales. Will this be a game changer for the automaker?
Well, we will see what they can do with that capital. Of course, what they should do is try and build the new model that Tesla promises will be the mainstream electric vehicle that Tesla is going to bring to the road for, I'm going to say us all, even though I'm probably not included in that us. But Tesla is definitely trying to change the game in the automotive industry, and they have been very successful, at least with the pre-orders for their latest model. Now they just need to build it, and that is a difficult task considering that there could be a very big demand for the new Tesla model. So they definitely needed this capital. Now they are getting that specific amount, which was highly desirable and also highly expected. It's just time that will tell us whether that is successful. If the oil prices are so low as we have seen them in the past months, well, that definitely won't help the electric car industry as a whole, but Tesla is definitely trying to make a point here.
Right, let's talk about the G7 meeting taking place in Japan. Germany, France, and UK are part of this weekend's G7 meeting. What will these leading European economies be pushing for?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer because there is a big dilemma when it comes to what the correct policies are. On the one hand, we know that many of the countries, especially France, need to implement reforms in order to be competitive, in order to attract investment, to let their companies surge and bring more jobs to their economies. On the other hand, we know that there are a lot of programs that are designed to shore up the economy. We're talking about monetary policy, very flexible monetary policy that we have, for example, in the Eurozone. So the question here is, what is the correct way? Some say that the countries have to save, that they have to implement those unpopular measures, that they have to restrict, for example, working conditions or how much the state is spending. Others say that investment is the way to go. Germany has been heavily criticized for not investing enough. So there will be a lot of discussions ongoing. Probably what we need is a combination of everything. But as long as there is a very flexible monetary policy and billions injected into the economies, the pressure to implement reforms won't be there for politicians to follow.
Well, Javier, we'll keep an eye on that meeting and see what the outcome would eventually be. Thank you for your time, Javier, and do enjoy your weekend. Javier Arguedas, DWTV, Channels TV financial correspondent, reporting there from Frankfurt Stock Exchange. While we move on, oil prices rose in early trading on Friday as turmoil in Nigeria, shale bankruptcies in the United States, and crisis in Venezuela all contributed to tightening supplies. Despite these, brimming inventories across the world were preventing supply shortfalls and sharper price spikes. International Brent crude futures were trading at $49.10 per barrel in early trade, by up 29 cents from their last settlement. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures was up 39 cents at $48.55 a barrel. Nigeria's oil production showed further signs of strain on Thursday as intruders blocked access to ExxonMobil's terminal exporting Quaibo, the country's largest crude stream. Militant activity in the oil-rich Niger Delta has taken out some 500,000 barrels per day of crude oil production from other companies in Nigeria, pushing oil output in Africa's largest producing nation to more than 22-year lows. And gold steadied after 2 days of losses on Friday, but was set for its biggest weekly slide in 8 weeks on the back of a firmer dollar and indications from the U.S. Federal Reserve that it could raise interest rates sooner than expected. New York Fed President said on Thursday there was a strong sense among the central bank officials that markets were underestimating the probability of policy tightening and that the Fed was on track for a rate hike in June or July. The comments came a day after the minutes of the Fed's April meeting revealed that most policymakers felt a rate increase might be appropriate as early as next month. Spot gold was little changed at $1,254 per ounce, near a 3-week low of $1,244 reached in the previous session. The metal is down 1.5% for the week, its biggest drop since the week ended March 25.